Welcome to my channel, Kindness Trend. Today's story will touch your heart. It's about judgment, shame, and the unexpected kindness that heals broken souls. So sit back, open your heart, and let's begin. It was late summer in a quiet Texas town. The wind carried the scent of dry hay and dust, the kind of place where people noticed everything and never forgot a scandal. Amelia Brooks was 19, soft-spoken, and heavier than most girls her age. Her cheeks were always red, her hair always falling into her face as she hurried through town, avoiding whispers. She wasn't the kind of girl people admired. Until one mistake changed everything. When her father, Pastor Raymond Brooks, learned that Amelia was expecting, his world fell apart. Not because he stopped loving her, but because he couldn't face the town's judgment. In his mind, shame was worse than heartbreak. He stopped talking to her. Stopped calling her my sunshine, stopped looking her in the eye. For the townsfolk, Amelia became the headline of every cruel whisper. The pastor's daughter, pregnant and unmarried? They laughed. They judged. And Amelia, sweet, innocent Amelia, hid behind closed doors, weeping into her pillow as the world she loved turned its back. Weeks passed. Her belly grew, her hope faded. Until one stormy afternoon, her father made a decision that would change everything. "Pack your things," he said coldly, standing in her doorway. "You're going to stay at the Walker Ranch. Mr. Walker's agreed to take care of you." Amelia froze. "Take care of me? What does that mean?" she whispered, but he didn't answer. He just turned away, like she wasn't his daughter anymore. The Walker Ranch was far outside of town. Miles of land and silence. The man who owned it, Ethan Walker, was known as the giant cowboy, 6'6", broad as an oak tree, voice like thunder. Most people feared him. Some said he lived alone because his heart was colder than the ranch soil. When Amelia arrived, rain pouring down her face, she stood trembling at the wooden gate. Ethan stepped out of the barn, wiping sweat from his brow, his presence almost larger than life. "You the girl the pastor sent?" he asked, his deep voice cutting through the rain. Amelia nodded, clutching her small suitcase like a lifeline. He studied her, not with disgust, not with pity, but curiosity. Then simply said, "All right, let's get you out of that rain." Inside his old ranch house, Ethan lit a fire and handed her a towel. The warmth of the flames met the cold ache inside her chest. "You'll stay here," he said, pointing toward a small guest room. "I don't care what you done. Folks make mistakes. Ain't my place to judge." Those words, "not my place to judge," were the first kindness she'd heard in months. Tears filled her eyes. She nodded, unable to speak. Days turned into weeks. Amelia learned to cook for Ethan, to feed the animals, to help with the ranch. At first, she was clumsy, always apologizing when she spilled water or tripped over a rope. But Ethan never shouted. He just laughed, a deep, hearty laugh that echoed across the fields. "You're doing fine, kid," he'd say. "Ain't no cowboy born knowing how to ride first try." He noticed how she flinched whenever he raised his voice, even if he wasn't angry. He noticed how she whispered, "sorry for everything," even when she didn't need to. He noticed her sadness, and he never asked why. Instead, he offered her something she hadn't felt in a long time: peace. One evening, while the sun painted the sky orange and gold, Ethan found Amelia sitting by the fence, talking softly to her unborn child. "You're gonna be loved," she said, her voice breaking. "Even if it's just me, I promise." Ethan stood quietly behind her, hat in hand. "You're gonna be one heck of a mom," he said finally. She turned, startled. "You really think so?" He nodded slowly. "Love ain't measured by mistakes. It's measured by how much you're willing to fight for someone." And in that moment, something inside Amelia began to heal. But the town hadn't forgotten her. Rumors spread that the giant cowboy had taken the pastor's shame under his roof, that he was hiding her for some reason, that maybe he was the father. The gossip reached Pastor Brooks within days. One Sunday after service, people whispered as he walked past. His face turned red, his hands shook. That night, he saddled his horse and rode to Walker Ranch in anger. He found Amelia on the porch, shelling peas, humming softly. "Pack your things," he barked. "You're coming home." Ethan stepped out behind her, calm but firm. "She's fine here," he said. "She don't need no more shame." Pastor Brooks turned on him, fury blazing. "You're making a fool out of me, Walker. You think you can protect her from the truth?" Ethan's jaw tightened. "Ain't protecting her from truth, just protecting her from cruelty." Amelia stood between them, trembling. "Please, Daddy," she whispered. "I'm safe here. Please don't make me go back." But her father couldn't see her pain, only his pride. He left without another word. Amelia cried that night harder than ever. Ethan sat quietly nearby, letting her weep, never touching her, just being there. "Sometimes," he said softly, "love ain't about blood. It's about choosing to stay when everyone else walks away." Months passed. Winter turned the fields silver. Amelia gave birth to a little girl. Grace. Ethan was there through it all. He held her hand, wiped her sweat, whispered, "You're stronger than any cowboy I've ever known." When she heard her baby cry for the first time, Amelia smiled through tears. "Hi, my little Grace," she whispered. "You're my miracle." Ethan looked down at the tiny baby, his massive hands cradling her gently. He smiled, a rare, tender smile that melted even the coldest hearts. Word spread again that Amelia had given birth on Walker Ranch. This time, people's cruelty turned to curiosity. They started calling Ethan the giant who raised a pastor's shame. He didn't care. He just rocked the baby and fixed fences like nothing happened. But Amelia cared. She couldn't stand seeing him mocked for helping her. One afternoon, she packed her bag quietly, left a note by the fire. "You gave me a home when I had none, but I can't let you carry my burden forever. Thank you for teaching me what kindness means." When Ethan found the note, his hands shook. He saddled his horse and rode into town. He found her at the old bus stop, clutching Grace close, tears streaking her face. "Where you think you're going?" he asked, his voice breaking for the first time. "I don't want you to be shamed anymore," she said. "Everyone blames you because of me." Ethan stepped closer, eyes wet. "Girl, let 'em talk. They don't know nothing. You and that baby are the best thing that ever happened to this ranch." Amelia looked at him, stunned. "Why? Why would you say that?" He took a deep breath. "Because you reminded me how to care again. My wife passed 5 years ago. Since then, I'd forgotten what family felt like. You brought life back into this place." Tears streamed down her cheeks. She stepped forward, and for the first time, hugged him. The giant cowboy, the broken girl, and the baby who connected two lonely hearts. Months later, something miraculous happened. Pastor Brooks received a letter. It was from his daughter. "Dear Daddy, Grace is walking now. Ethan treats her like she's his own. I used to think shame was the end of love, but now I know it's just the start of forgiveness. I hope someday you'll come meet your granddaughter." He read it over and over. That night, for the first time in a year, he wept, not from anger but from regret. Spring came. Ethan was fixing the barn when he saw a carriage coming up the dusty road. It was Pastor Brooks. He stepped down slowly, hat in hand, eyes full of sorrow. Amelia froze, holding Grace in her arms. "I came to see my family," her father said softly. Tears flooded her eyes as she handed him the baby. Pastor Brooks' hands trembled as he held his granddaughter. "Grace," he whispered. "That's a beautiful name." Ethan stood silently nearby, watching forgiveness bloom like spring flowers. The old man turned to him. "You saved her," he said. "When I was too blinded by pride to love my own child, you saved her." Ethan just nodded. "She saved me too, preacher. Years passed." Walker Ranch became a place of kindness and laughter. Amelia helped run it, Grace grew up chasing horses, and Pastor Brooks visited every Sunday with pie and stories. People stopped gossiping and started admiring the strength of the girl who rose from shame with grace. Amelia often stood on the porch at sunset, watching Ethan teach Grace to ride a horse. The light would fall just right on their faces. The big cowboy and the tiny girl, laughter echoing through the fields. Sometimes she'd whisper to herself, "Maybe family isn't who you're born to. Maybe it's who stands beside you when the world turns away." And every time she said it, the wind seemed to carry those words across the plains, like a prayer for anyone who's ever been judged, shamed, or forgotten. If this story touched your heart, remember this: everyone makes mistakes, but kindness is what gives those mistakes meaning. Because when we choose compassion over judgment, we become someone's second chance. Thank you for watching Kindness Trend. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Because sometimes one story can remind the world that humanity still matters.